In our current global climate, we're facing challenges never before experienced by this generation. Oppositions where no one seems to have clear directions or answers to the risks facing us. Confrontations like racial and gender unrest, political gerrymandering, toxic leadership, economic crisis, global pandemic, health threats, pre-existing medical conditions, isolation, boredom, and loneliness are driving people to desperation. As a result, people are confused, afraid, anxious, and perplexed, and they need answers to some tough questions and even tougher situations. They are looking into different outlets for answers to gain assurance and consolation. Some have drawn closer to the embrace of family, while others look more towards their friendships, education, and even religion. What we need is a fresh voice of truth and clarity, and not a stale religious echo from the past. There's a re-emerging voice on the horizon that isn't afraid to stand alone and give spiritual and mentally sound direction to a world searching for answers. G. Alfred Palmer offers a voice of sound human development and empowerment to those willing to hear. There's a need for new ideas to old principles, a perspective from a timeless origin, but with current vision, a thought leader who understands what it means to stand alone and speak truth when some are hard of hearing. But if you've been waiting to hear a voice that opens the gates of freedom and breaks the shackles of confusion to allow you to step forward into the dawning of a new and exciting future, then it's time to bridge the gap with Dr. G. Alfred Palmer. He is a dynamic speaker, thought leader, and entrepreneur, equipped to elevate, expand, and extend the development, empowerment, and leadership of his audiences. He stands ready to speak at your next event. His delivery is guaranteed to refresh, entertain, and transform. G. Alfred Palmer bridges the gap from uncertainty to the purpose, to passion, and leadership. Book him today for your next event, and you won't be disappointed.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Come on in this house. Come on in this house. Come on in this house. That's what we're talking about. All right. It's time to get started. It is time to get started. Welcome. Welcome to the Red Hot Mic. I am your host, G. Alfred Palmer. And as usual, I am ecstatic about being here with you and spending this time together with you. I have got a powerful broadcast tonight. Now, one thing that's I'm still learning. Again, I keep saying it every turn. I'm still learning, and sometimes one of the things I'm learning is that sometimes you have to do things over again. So this is going to be a repeat broadcast because I'm told that the last time we didn't get everything that we needed as far as the sound goes. And so as a result of that, we didn't get it all that we needed. We didn't get everything that we needed. We didn't get everything on board. And so it was one of those kind of situations where I'm saying we have to do it over again. So we're going to, hopefully this time it'll go through. Practice makes perfect. Nah. But practice makes permanent. So, you know how we like to start. Let's get busy. Let's get busy. I don't know if you can see him tonight. Oh, there he is. Haley Lamar, my co-host. Give him a hand. Haley. Thank you, Haley. Can I have my hat? Haley, thank you. Haley has my hat and he has my masks that we have to give out as well. You don't get my hat, but I can get you the mask. Let's see how we can do this tonight. I don't know if I like this hat. Okay, so we'll get it together, and it's time to celebrate. Let's do that a little bit. And as usual, here's to you, to the best of you, and the best in you, and the best that you will be. Cheers. Let's do it like we do.
Come on in this house. Get in here, boy. Come on. Get on in this house. It's dark out there. You know what it's like. Get in this house. Girl, get in this house.
Thank you for coming All right. All right. One more time. Come on. One more. Then we're going to get busy. Oh, yeah. Woo! Come on. Oh, yeah. Woo! Oh, yeah. Woo! Yeah. Come on. Come on. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. It really is. To come into the Red Hot Mic and just spend some time with us. Yeah. I don't know if there's something that you could be doing. I really appreciate you stopping in, stopping through. Come on. It's the Red Hot Mic. It's the Red Hot Mic. Oh yeah. Woo! It's just wonderful to be here. You know, we want to talk about modern men tonight. Modern men. I've been accused of not getting on the men. I got something for you. Oh yeah. Come on. Woo! Oh yeah. Come on. It's the Red Hot Mic. Make sure you share, like, and click the notification bell. Come on. Come on. Yeah. Come on in this house. Woo. Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Thank you so much. One more time. Psych. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. One more time. Dr. G. Alfred Palmer here, and I am excited about doing this particular broadcast over again. And I'm gonna tell you, it happens. I'm learning the trials that it takes to be a content creator. It's not easy. I don't like the way this hat is looking. I don't wear this one that much. Anyway, we gotta break it in. Gotta break it in. Anyway, I am learning that it takes persistence and consistency. I don't have as much problem with the persistence as I do with the consistency. So we're going to work on the consistency piece and work on doing that and getting that better. You know, because those two, persistence and consistency, will always get you that which you desire, especially if it's meant for you to have. But it's all about test, trial, and not giving up. Many times we quit just before our time of true blessing is at hand. So what we've got to do is not quit. Never quit. Never quit. So I'm glad that you're here with me. And what I'm learning to do is I'm learning to check the instruments because I am. Anyway, sometimes I don't do this and I don't do that, and it's work. It's work, and it's not always you. It's sometimes the equipment. It's like tonight. It was just an arduous task of getting the equipment the way that it was supposed to be. It just didn't want to act right. But hey, we're here. We are here. So it's the Red Hot Mic, and I'm excited about this particular broadcast because I think this is a very much needed topic. Modern men's relationship with narcissism, because I hear so many broadcasts and they're talking about narcissism. Narcissistic men, he's narcissistic, he's like this and he's like that. He's a narcissistic man. And I'm here to say this. I believe that there's an assault on masculinity through the narcissistic personality disorder. And as a mental health professional that has dealt with mental health and substance abuse and you name it, bipolar, or I should say dual diagnosed, for a long time. And what I've seen is some very specific things that I want to address here tonight when it comes to the masculine energy. Now, some of this you're going to hear again and again, because I believe that you start hearing the more that you hear. And it's important that it's not that we move on to in a rush to move on to something else, because it's not about that. What it's about is it's about the persistency and consistency. You got to be persistent and consistent. So in order for the persistency to manifest itself, what I've got to do is be consistent as well. So I'm working on that piece. I'm working on that piece because I understand more and more what it takes. This is not an easy task, but some folks make it look really easy because they've been doing it a long time and they've got everything pretty much. And it takes. I mean, it's like you're doing the job of more than one person. I mean, really, you are. But I'm getting to that place where I know what needs to be done, and it's one of those things where you start feeling a little better when you see things happen the way that they're supposed to happen. But anyway, I want to talk about the modern man, his relationship with narcissism, because it's all about, first of all, this life in this realm, in this domain, in this sphere. Is all about relationship. Everything is about relationship. And if we don't have the ability to establish effective relationships, then the relationships will affect us. These relationships come through community, culture, and clan, and they come to direct our lives and to take control of our lives if we don't take control of those things. So I want to talk about do all men suffer from bipolar disorder? Suffer from narcissistic personality disorder? Because I'm hearing a lot of people saying pretty much yes, they do. Men are just they have personality disorder. I want to share something with you, whether you've heard this before or not. One of the things about being a voice is that you're not intimidated to say things that other people have not said or heard. Now, I know that there's nothing new. No, you're not going to be the first one. I'm not going to be the first one to say it. So I know that someone else has said it. But the thing is not being afraid to address it. And so I'm going to address something that may sound different and may sound strange. But the bottom line is it's about getting you to see some things as opposed to what it makes me look like. I'm just a messenger. I'm a mailman, and other than that, nothing else really matters. It really doesn't. So let's get busy. It's time for us to what? We got 3 things that we do, right? We ruminate, elevate, and activate. Say that with me. Ruminate, elevate, activate. Now, why are those things very important? Why are they important? Well, they're important because the fact that that's how change happens. That's how development takes place. So many of us are not developing because we are not ruminating. Ruminating means to pause, to ponder. It means to chew upon, chew on, regurgitate and chew again, and eat. And so that's what it's about. It's about ruminating, pausing, dwelling, meditating on. Elevating means preparing to move to another level. There's nothing wrong with the level where you are. It's not, or the level that you came from. It's not that you're right now and they're wrong. It's not about right or wrong. It's about development. Where you were, that was fine for where you were, but now it's time for you to move to another level. Another level isn't saying that where you were is wrong. It's just time to move. And if you fail to move, you will not be able to develop to the fullest that you were intended to. So it's important for us to be willing to move. It's like having something in our hand and not being able to get something else in our hand because our hand is closed. We have to be willing to let go what's in our hand to receive what may be even more than what we already have. And so it's important. I saw, and I posted it on Facebook, I believe, a man who was went into a store and asked several people to pay for a bottle of water. Bottle of water, a small, regular, I believe 16-ounce, bottle of water, Deer Park, I believe it was. And he just went up to them and said, "Hey, I left my wallet. Could you buy this water for me?" And the attitudes of some people. You can't get anything if you're not willing to give. And so the attitudes were so poor that they basically put him down for not being able to pay. And so he asked several people, and they said, no, absolutely not. No. I mean, it's the way that they said. It's not even the idea of saying no. It's the way that they said no that was so. So he continued and kept getting the same answers. No. But then he went to a woman who had 3 or 4 kids. She had her basket was full, and he asked the same question verbatim that he asked the other people. Look, I left my wallet. Could you purchase this bottle of water for me? She said yes. And he said, because you did that, I'm going to pay for all your groceries. See, it's the thing about getting, right? It's about not only getting, but it's about giving so that you can receive. Because the more you give, the more you can receive. But so she was so happy, her family was happy that she was able to keep her money, whatever money she had for her family, and he was able to go ahead and pay for her groceries as well. So it's important for us to be willing to give, to release in order to receive. But a lot of people don't want to do that because it's all about you, right? It's all about you. It's not about anything else. It's all about you getting what you want and, getting all you can, put it in the can, and sitting on the can. But anyway, let's talk about it. I want to talk about, being a mental health professional for as long as I have been, over a long time, a long time. I've learned a lot of things about personality. I've learned a lot about people. And a lot of the things I do because I want to I want to allow people to see what human personality looks like. And I get accused of various things, but that's fine. Again, it's not about me. It's more about you. I'm willing to fall on the sword. Okay, but the bottom line is, in the decades that I've worked with people in private practice, in organizations, companies, in all kinds of facilities, mental health facilities, penitentiaries, jails, again, mental health facilities, substance abuse treatment facilities, churches, mosques, all kinds of organizations that I've worked in, and I've come across varying types of people. And so people, I'm in the people business. And I really think if you find purpose, you will be too, because that's what purpose is all about. Okay, so I want to talk about this personality disorder called narcissism. And narcissism is something that I hear, again, I hear a lot of it being touted on social media, and people are talking about this person has narcissism and that person is narcissistic. And I'm going to say something that may sound a little different tonight, but that's not to negate that I have seen and experienced people that have narcissistic personality disorder. It's a very real thing. But my contention is this, that there's not as many as we are touting that there are. I'm of the belief that if you really come in contact with a person that's NPD, you will know it. Because the exaggerations are so extreme. They're not what we basically have touted as being narcissistic. It may be selfish, or it may be a lot of things, but narcissism is something that when you experience it, you will know. And I would dare say, just like on a bell curve, there's extremes on both ends. And those extremes are very, very few. But I hear people say that this person's narcissistic and that person's narcissistic, when in all actuality, we're more alike than we are different. Because if you look at, like the bell curve shows us, if you look at, most of us are falling in the middle 96%, if you would. And if we're falling in that 96%, even though we may be to the right or the left, we're still pretty much within that same parameter of being more alike than we are dissimilar. When we come in contact with people who really are narcissistic, what you're going to see is extreme behavior that has lasted for a long time. And so you will know it when you see it, because it's very extreme and very exaggerated. It's not what we're labeling as narcissistic. Now, so I believe that there are people that have the diagnosis. I really do. I believe that there are people that need help when it comes to receiving treatment. Some of them need medication, counseling. They need to see a therapist on a regular basis because of the extreme nature of their particular disorder. But the bottom line is, I think that more than anything, what we're experiencing is not narcissism, but what we're experiencing is an assault on masculinity. Now, some of you are not going to, oh, where did he get that from? He's always, well, listen, the reason is because I understand the importance of masculinity and femininity. And the reason why I want to talk about masculinity tonight during this broadcast is because I hear so many people say, especially ladies, saying that I'm always talking down to women. I'm not talking down. I just understand the importance of feminine energy. I understand how important and vital, and hopefully, you hang around me, you'll hear a little bit more. But I guess I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but at the same token, who is, right? I mean, the bottom line is those that are needing to hear me will hear me, and those that don't won't. And so it's no way that I can make you hear me. No matter how I put it, how I articulate it, how I enunciate it, how mild or soft I speak, or how harsh and masculine I speak. It doesn't matter. You're not going to hear because it's not for you. But if it's for you, it won't matter how I say it. It won't matter. You'll know it's for you because you know that you know that you know. You ever know that's something that's something that you know that nobody told you, but you know it for real? And when you hear someone say, I knew that. I knew that. No one ever told me that, but I knew it. That's what I'm hoping that we'll do. And all I will do through this broadcast is give you a confirmation of what you already know. I'm not trying to be anything, but to just confirm for you the very thing that you have been saying or to yourself, and you never even mentioned it to anyone else. So here's your confirmation, gentlemen. Here's your confirmation. So modern men's relationship to narcissism. Now, what we've got to understand is there are many people out here, professional, personal, and pedestrian, who are quick to put labels on people, but don't want labels placed on them. They don't want labels, but they're quick to place labels on others. And it's important to understand that from a masculine perspective, it's vital to understand that there are some that rightly that need to be diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder. However, most of us don't. Now, when it comes to personality disorders, I believe there's around 10 of them. There's around 10 different personality disorders, and believe me, they all have characteristics. They all have signs, markers, and believe me, each and every one of us at some time have been we have exhibited those markers in more than one of the 10 at the same time. So it's not a matter of whether you have a diagnosis. Everybody sometime in their life is going to be going to characterize some of these diagnoses. Now, but the actual truth of the matter is that there's about 5% of the people in the United States population, only 5%, who are diagnosed as having narcissistic personality disorder. That's not a lie. So that means the people that you think that are narcissistic are not. So if they're not narcissistic, what is it this that we're experiencing? What is it that we're experiencing? Why are we seeing so many people saying that this person is narcissistic, that person is narcissistic, et cetera, et cetera? But before I go any further, well, let's define some terms, because I'm the kind of person that I like defining terms, because when we define terms, what that does is that puts us on the same sheet of music and allows us to be able to understand and to communicate across with similar understanding without reaching out into cosmos and bringing something into the midst of our conversation. So hopefully we won't do that. But if you do, I'll call a timeout on that as well. So it's important for us to know that there's 3 words that are very, very important when we start talking about personality disorders. The first word is personality. So when we talk about personality is a combination of characteristics that form a person's character. I'll say that to you again. That personality is a combination of characteristics that form an individual's character. Now, then the question is, what is character? Well, character is the mental and moral qualities distinctive to every person. Every person's character shows that they're different. Every person is different. I don't care. Twins aren't even the same. No one is the same. You are a masterpiece. You are a grimoire. You are not. There is no one like you. Never was, is, or will be like you. You are the genuine article. There is no one that will ever be like you. So enjoy who you are. Don't try to imitate others. It's better. It's better to be a cheap original than an expensive copy. So many of us are copying people. Now, I understand. I'm not talking about, gleaning from them and then taking what they've done and invoke it and mold it and shape it around your own personality and who you are. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being someone else, taking on their personality, taking on their character. Trying to anyway. You can't really take on someone else's character, but you can mimic, and that's what the third word is traits. And what traits is basically a distinguishing quality or character typically belonging to a person. It's behaviors and attitudes that make up a person's personality, normally shown with descriptive adjectives. And these traits can be developed through observation and rehearsal. Now, the thing about traits is this is what we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing people demonstrating traits. Traits are things or behaviors or attitudes that we've picked up from others. It's something that we've learned. Traits are things that we've learned from observation, things that we've rehearsed over and over again. And as a result of rehearsing them, they become a part of us. They become a part of us. And so as they become a part of us, we think that that's who we are. We think that that's who we are. Now, I love movies. I love movies. And what I'm seeing now in a lot of movies is I'm seeing a lot of this feminist promulgating, and it's to the point where they really want you to think that women are the same and equal with men. I want you to understand something. We are equal, but not the same. I'll say that again. We are equal, but not the same. How can we be equal and not the same? Well, easy. 5 plus 5 is 10. But 6 plus 4 is 10. There's equal, but it's not the same. We're not the same, men and women. So you can watch these movies that have you think that you can beat up a man. You're not built for that. You're not designed for that. Of course, there's going to be some that are going to be able to do that. But over the average, men are bigger, stronger, right? For the most part. Well, it's hard to say with some of these guys nowadays. It's becoming, you know what I'm talking about. But the bottom line is, men overall, from an average standpoint, bell curve, are stronger, bigger, and have the wherewithal to overpower women. Now, I was doing some research, and they were saying that in Ukraine, it's approximately 36,000 women that are in the armed forces. But in Russia, the amount of women is almost 10% of the total force, military force. So they're women, but comparably speaking, Ukraine's women make up a large part of their army. Now, who do you think? Who do you think? I mean, really? What culture? What people group dominated by women has survived? Women need men, but men need women too. We are equal, but not the same. And I'm going to talk about masculinity during this session, but the next session I'm going to talk about femininity. And I'm going to talk about the whole idea of her weakness has become her strength, but her strength is her weakness. You don't want to miss it. But anyway, so when we start talking about traits Traits are learned. So you can go to a class or YouTube's channel or or whatever, but those are traits. But it's not your character and it's not your personality. See, your personality and your character are things that came here with you. Traits are things that you picked up. You pick them up through your culture, through your community and your clan. Now, I want to talk about masculine personality. And the reason I want to talk about masculine personality is because, call them character, personality, character, whatever you want to call it. But here are some things that you got to understand about masculinity. Now, here's the thing. When you talk about masculinity, before it came into this realm and this sphere that we live in, it was in another sphere. It's in what we call the great beyond, whatever we want to call it. Space, heaven, whatever you want to call it. But wherever it was, that place, whatever that was, masculinity and femininity were there. Masculinity needs femininity. Femininity needs masculinity. Now, the thing is, they can't coexist in the same entity. It can't. That's why men need women and women need men. Because you can't have both. And if you try to emulate through traits, there's going to be something missing because it's a mimic and it's not true, it's not innate, it's not natural. Some people think that they've always liked doing that. No, you learned it. You picked it up from somewhere. And you've brought it in inductively. You inducted it. You brought it in. And as a result of that, you think it's a part of who you are, but it's really not. It's really not. When we talk about masculine and we talk about masculinity, masculinity has to do several things. It has to penetrate. It has to pierce. It has to insert, and it has to inject. Okay? Now, those are not masculine as in a man, but those qualities are things that men do because of masculinity. It came from masculinity. So masculine and masculinity out there had to put on a body to come in here, and the body represents true masculinity. It's innate. It's from design. If you're not designed masculine to be able to penetrate, insert, inject, and pierce, you cannot and are not masculine. Okay? You're not. Now, let's talk about some more characteristics of the masculine personality. First of all, it's got to be strong. Okay? Now, this strong personality, this strong has to be not just physically, but physically is very, very important. It's because of that strong that men are built differently, have broader shoulders, stronger, bigger biceps, wider feet, longer arms, bigger hands, right? Narrow waist, bigger thighs. Or maybe not bigger thighs, but stronger thighs. And the same with calves. Maybe not bigger, they should be, but calves that are strong. Okay? And so all these things are strong for a reason. It's important that the masculine be able to grasp the hold, to stand, to withstand, to battle, to endure, right? It's important for the masculine to be strong. Next, it has to have a sense of understanding how to rule. Now, rule is something that R-U-L-E. So many people think that that's a negative they have a negative connotation, because what we do with it is we look at it as in the connotation of a kingdom, and we ascribe kings and queens, and sometimes the king's good, sometimes they're not. And so what we have a tendency to do is ascribe negative ideas to the whole word of ruling. But to rule is not to boss. No, that's not what ruling is. You don't rule people. You rule circumstances and situations. When people try to rule people, the people who are trying that are being ruled will always rebel. Sooner or later they will rebel. Because ruling people is not normal. We rule our domain. We rule our area of influence. We rule animals. We rule our environment. But we do not rule people. Now, the next word is self-confidence. And one of the things that we have a tendency to do is to think that self-confidence is cockiness or arrogance. I've been labeled arrogant, cocky. You know, you get it, guys. You have to. If you have a sense of understanding who you are, someone's going to label you as being cocky or arrogant. Okay, but self-confidence in other cultures is seen as a positive quality, but when it's seen in certain cultures, it is not. Okay. But anyway, moving on. Because I have a long way to go. The next word is nonconformist. Masculine personality is a nonconformist. Why? Now that's not saying that you are a lawbreaker, because a lawbreaker is a criminal. A nonconformist is the one that goes against the grain of the community, culture, and clan, but does not break laws. Because in understanding this, laws come from principles. So if you obey principles, laws will always fall in line. Even if you don't know what the law is, you just need to know the principle. Love's a principle. If you understand the law of love, okay, then romance and all those other things will come. It's not a problem, because the bottom line is romance comes from love, right? And so there's other words that come from love. The whole principle of love. And so we have to understand that we may not ever get to understand what that word is, but if we understand that principle, that word will not be void in our lives, even though we may not know what that word is. So a nonconformist is one that goes against the grain, not afraid to stand alone, not afraid to be a person that other people were going to say that he's a troublemaker, she's a troublemaker, you know. So you have to be willing to be called weird, strange. You know, the thing is this: people are going to talk about you if you do. People are going to talk about you if you don't. So you might as well be and do what you're supposed to be and do, because that's the way that you're going to be happier. That's the way that you're going to be fulfilled. That's the way that you're going to fulfill your destiny. That's the way that you're going to leave an effective legacy. So it's important to understand what a nonconformist is. A nonconformist is not a criminal. A nonconformist does not break the civil law. See, because there's a difference between natural law and civil law. Civil law is manipulated by men, by their nature, right? By their character, right? But see, if you obey principle, you will still be over top of, operating above civil law. Okay? And that's not saying you're going to break the law. You won't break it. You'll exceed it. And there's a difference between that and breaking it. Okay, so nonconformist. The next thing is the masculine is logical. It's important to understand why the masculine is logical. And that's because the feminine is emotional. Now, this isn't to negate that both have logic, both have emotions. We all do. We all do. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what we need to understand. The truth of what we need to understand is that we have a particular leaning toward, a preference toward, right? And so we have this pre-leaning toward a way of operating and functioning. Men have a more logical and women more emotional, but yet some of the deepest thinkers are women. Some of the deepest thinkers are women. Some of the most emotional people in touch with emotions are men. But we've got to understand, again, the overall, as opposed to the extremes, is that we are either logical or we are emotional. But we're talking about being logical because that's a part of masculinity. Masculinity doesn't, and being logical doesn't mean that you're smarter. It doesn't mean that you are the top cheese. But what it does mean is that you have been positioned for a specific reason. And the specific reason, it needs emotion, but it doesn't need emotion right out the gate. It needs emotion to be fulfilled, but logic to get started and to carry it through. Excuse me. So logic. The next thing is analytical. We've got to be able to analyze things. Masculinity is able to, and this is why, let's say for instance, empathy. We're going to talk about empathy a little later. But the whole idea about empathy is it comes from the emotional sphere of woman. And so empathy is something that you'll more find with women than you will with men. And the reason is because men will analyze the situation from start to finish and be very analytical, and that being that analytical may cause him empathy not to be warranted in that situation. Because empathy will cause weakness or the loss of dominance or loss of position or loss of advantage or loss of privilege. So just because a man says no doesn't mean he doesn't have empathy. You see, we got to understand what the empathy is. Empathy is, well, we'll talk about it because we're going to go in it. But there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. But the bottom line is when a man has that analytical piece thread running through him, doesn't mean that he's not empathetic. He just understands from an analytical perspective that it's necessary that he not be empathetic in this situation for certain reasons. Now, the next word is ambitious. And masculinity must be ambitious. Now, and what is it? And why is that? Because if it's not ambitious, it's not masculinity. Now, I'm going to talk about masculinity is a part of manhood. Manhood. There's 3 stages to us as the males, and I don't like that word, but it's the only word I can think of. And then females, there's 3 stages. There's boy, there's male, and then there's man. On the flip side, there is girl, female, and woman. And those 3 stages are very, very important in our developmental process. Okay? And we're going to talk about that eventually. But ambition, ambitious, and being ambitious and having some ambition about you is important because ambition is a part of manhood. And as a man, there should be some direction that you're pressing towards. So often there are some that aren't, and that's because they're not men. They're males. Some of them are boys. We're going to talk about that a little later too. All right, so we're talking about the whole idea of what masculine personality looks like. Masculine personality also is brave. Now, brave being brave, and there's a whole lot of other ones that I'm not even going to get to, but I just want to mention these because they're very important to me. Brave is important, but brave does not mean without fear. Okay, fearless doesn't really mean to be without fears. It means to operate independent of fear. It's operating independent of being feared. That's the fearless part. Is moving out and doing, even though there's evidence of things that are you have every right to be fearful of. But when we talk about being brave is to move out and to do in the face of negative circumstances or situation. Now you got to be careful because there's a very thin line between bravery and stupidity. So you have to know how to walk that line. The next word is assertive. We've got to be assertive. Now, one of the things that we see we hear when we hear the word assertive, especially with men, we hear the word arrogance. Okay, he's arrogant. Okay, he's pushy. He's selfish. You know, he's strong-willed. All these other things, and those things are important. But yet, assertiveness means basically to understand and know your place and to operate in a function and not allow people to get you outside of your space. It's to be assertive. It's to establish boundaries and say that I'm not going to allow that to be allow me to be sidetracked. The others. There's other ones but I need to move on because I wanted to talk about innovative. Masculinity is innovative. We think about many different ways to do something. It's direct. It doesn't sugarcoat things, and as a result of that, we'll get labeled as being mean, unfeeling, rude. Okay. The next one is non-emotional. It's not that we're not emotional. We don't allow our emotions to rule us. And lastly, we're competitive. We're competitive because there's need to be competitive. We need to push each other to excellence. Okay. Now, most of the masculine is designed for dominance, confrontation, and competition. And it's important that we understand that. You're not going to go away. Masculinity doesn't go away from competition. It goes toward it. But yet we're going to get labeled certain things as a result of it. Okay. Diagnosis of who gets diagnosed more often with narcissistic personality disorder. Well, the vast majority of diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder are males. Normally, in the United States, there are approximately 7.7 or something like that, and of that, women is 4.8 or 5, or close to 5%, and so that they're close, but yet there's a little bit of distance between, just a little bit, but there's not a big wide difference between the two. So if he's narcissistic, what are you? If she's narcissistic, what are you? And it's important to understand that this disorder is not as broad as and sweeping as people tend to try to make it sound like it is. But anyway, I want to talk real briefly about DSM-5. DSM-5 says this is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. It's the 5th edition. And it basically outlines how to diagnose people who have mental health problems. And what they do is you do an assessment and evaluation, and then what you do is you begin to ascertain and look for certain criteria. Now, narcissistic, according to the APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association, says that there are 9 criteria that are identified as narcissistic personality disorder. And in order to be diagnosed as narcissistic, you have to have at least 5. 5 of the 9, and I believe it's between 6 months and a year that it has to be persistent, that you're experiencing these particular 5. Now it could be any 5 at any time, but it has to be within the whole 6 to 12 month time period. Now, when we talk about this criteria or these markers, what I want to do is I want you to understand this, that these markers literally identify characteristics of masculinity. And so what they want, so what I see, what I believe is that there is an attack, an assault on masculinity. And they're using NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, to justify putting a diagnosis and calling masculinity a disorder. A disorder. Now, that's dangerous because, again, femininity needs masculinity, and masculinity needs femininity. I'm sure those ladies over in Ukraine and in Russia would gladly be more feminine today. Oh, sure, there's going to be some that's going to want to go to war. But really, do you? Ladies, really? Overall, do you really? I would say most ladies do not want to go to war. That's the case even in Ukraine, because so many of the families, the men have sent their families away with the children, sent the wives and the children away, and they've stayed to fight. They have stayed to fight against Russia. And so, sure, there are women. There are women there. But I dare say that most of them are not there to fight. Most of them have gone away. So let's get back. 9 criteria. 5 of the 9 need to be present. And so what I want to show that through these criteria, the assault on masculinity. First of all, the first criteria is a grandiose logic of self-importance. A grandiose logic of self-importance. Now, important word there, grandiose. What is grandiose? Grandiose, literally, we've made it something negative, but actually, grandiose actually means an imposing, a splendid, a glorious, a majestic, and an impressive. Something that's impressive. Okay? In this sense, impressive logic. Splendid logic. Splendid logic about who? About self. We've got to have some understanding and knowledge about self. If you don't know who you are, people will tell you who you are. But yet, that's what masculinity does. Masculinity, grandiose is an idea of masculine and masculinity. Self-importance, everyone should have a sense of self-importance. But self-importance basically really has a more idea of self-awareness. We all should be self-aware. And in knowing and having self-importance, we understand how and what we have to contribute to humanity. The next one is a fixation with fantasies of infinite success, control, brilliance, beauty, and idyllic love. So if you have a fixation, what is a fixation? Listen, masculinity has a fixation. And we're supposed to have a fixation, but what is a fixation? A fixation is a vision. A fixation is a vision or a preoccupation with something. We see something. Have you ever had something that you've seen all your life? That same thing you have seen throughout your life. That's called a vision. Yeah, you have one. What does that vision say? See, that's why you need to come on over to the purpose sphere, and when we're going to be starting in the next Actually, tomorrow. We're going to start broadcasting tomorrow the purpose sphere. So the purpose sphere is going to be a more spiritual and more directly spiritual, rather than here we're using more scientific means. Like we're using here. We're using the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, 5th edition, which is more of a scientific manual. Over there, we may use more biblical narrative or some other type of script, of religious script or what have you. We'll see how we go. But here, a fixation, fantasy of infinite success. What's wrong with wanting to have success, control, brilliance, beauty, and idyllic love? What's wrong with that? But that's what we as masculine want, where we have a vision, and that vision incorporates those things: success, control, brilliance, beauty, and idyllic love. Okay, so that's number 2. I am really going. Well, we gotta do this, right? Number 3 is a credence that he or she is extraordinary and exceptional, and can only be understood by or should connect with other extraordinary or important or people or institutions. Okay, so these people, they have a credence. It's a credence. What is a credence? A credence is an acceptance, an assurance, a conviction, and positiveness. It's nothing wrong with having a positiveness. Men are positive about things. You need to be positive. She's not going to follow you if you're not positive. You need to have a credence about yourself. There needs to be a conviction, an assurance of where you're going. We're going that way. No, we're not going. We're going that way. Now, when I point that way, her objective is different and shows how we're going to get there from point A to point B. That's what she does. She helps us. Well, we don't, and that's what she does. And here's the important thing is, we got to understand the need for one another, and not the contempt for one another. And see, that's what happens. Familiarity breeds contempt. The more you get to know someone, the more contemptible you become of them. You just, you don't want to hear them. You hear anybody else but them. And when they go to say something, or you overtalk her, you minimize her. That's not what we do. Okay? So this whole credence thing, this conviction of wanting, what's wrong with wanting to be around extraordinary or exceptional people? What's wrong with that? You should, because purpose will take you around like-minded people. And they are extraordinary. They are extraordinary. They are exceptional. Okay? It will put you in certain environments, institutions, whatever you want to call them. It'll put you in environments where people are doing special things, and you'll be a part of it. Number 4, a desire for unwarranted admiration. Okay? A desire for unwarranted, the word unwarranted means improper, unauthorized, illegal. Now, the thing about unwarranted, no one should want anything unwarranted. It doesn't mean anything, period. None of us. So if we ever want attention or anything like that, because that's what admiration is, because it says unwanted admiration. Admiration means approval, credit, acclaim, esteem, or affection. So if we wanted affection that's unwarranted, if we want credit that's not ours, right? We want to take credit for someone else who did the work, or we want to be esteemed instead of someone else because they've done the work and you didn't, then that's a problem. That's a problem regardless whether you're diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder or not. You have issues. Okay? Number 5, a sense of entitlement. A sense of entitlement. A sense of entitlement. As men, we do have a sense. That word sense means awareness. It means perception. And I'm not saying women don't. I'm talking about in the idea of the assault or being on masculinity. These are masculine. These are masculine. These are masculine personality characteristics. And because of that, they inject, they insert, they penetrate, right? Okay, so they pierce. Okay, so the whole idea here is this sense of entitlement, the sense of the awareness or the awareness or the perception of entitlement. Entitlement basically means right, prerogative, permission, or claim. A person has, if you have an awareness of who you are and what right is, you should be standing for it. And see, now if you take a stand as being a man and saying that I am a man and I am not going to take down from being a man. And when you do that and people begin to look at you and say, oh, he's just, you can't talk to him. You can't. No, it's not that you can't talk to me. It's just that you're not going to come through the barriers, the boundaries. The boundaries are established. They're set, and they're supposed to be set for men. They're supposed to be set. Okay, and so this sense or this awareness of what's right or prerogative is based on the fact that you have understand and you have a value of self, and you understand who you are and the importance that you have and what you are supposed to be doing, and you're not going to let no one steer you away, distract you from that which you were supposed to be doing. So yeah, they're going to tell you that you think you're entitled, you think you're something special. Well, I am, and so are you. Number 6, interpersonally oppressive behavior. Interpersonally oppressive behavior. Now, and when we start talking about interpersonally, we're talking about how we deal with each other. So here, this characteristic, this particular criteria is saying that the person that is oppressive, that means domineering, autocratic, ruthless. And so a man is supposed to be domineering. But the domineering mentality is not toward people. It's toward what you're supposed to be doing. Domineering. Autocratic. Autocratic means that I am focused. One man show here. If you're not getting on board, then we're not going. How can two go down the same road unless they're saying the same thing? They can't. It's impossible. So if they're not talking and walking like you, then you need to bypass and keep going. Okay? So, and this, why is this important? Because this allows us as men to establish dominance. This dominance that we have, and this domineering that's being talked about, is important to survival. We can't be passive, but yet some are. And when they find a man who is domineering, and that domineering may be misfocused, may not be totally understood, needs some teaching, but at the same token, he understands that domination and being domineering is an important aspect, but not of people, right? Not of people, of environment, areas of influence, right? All right, that was number 6. Number 7, no form of empathy. We talked about empathy at the very beginning. Empathy is important for us to understand that when it says no form, that means that there's no structure, no appearance of empathy. Well, now, what is empathy? Empathy in the Greek comes from two words. The first word, em means to put into, put on, to, and to come out of. To come out of. Pathy means feeling. To come out your feelings. Empathy is to come out your feelings. It's to come out of your feelings. It's to exude your feelings. And so a man is not supposed to operate by his empathy. And I shared an example earlier, because the bottom line is sometimes empathy can be a detriment to the situation. Sometimes empathy is not warranted. And so we've got to understand that. And so we have to remain logical relative to the situation that may or may not afford the opportunity for empathy. And if it doesn't, we have to negate it. It's not that we don't have it. There are other choices that the protection, sustainability, survival are more important than someone's feelings being hurt. Okay? Now, when we start talking about empathy, there's three types of empathy. There's emotional, cognitive, and then there's sympathetic. Okay? Men will more operate in cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy. We are looking at the situation, and our empathy comes from our mentality and how we work through the scenario of a situation that we're facing, and how does empathy fit in that situation, if possible. But if there's no place for it, then it doesn't fit. Women will be more emotional and more sympathetic. Okay. But we all been through things. Sympathy is, we've all been through things. So sympathy is feeling for someone because you've experienced similar things. So we know what that's like. But even with that could be a detriment. Okay? So it's important to understand that there's three types of empathy. All right. So we're coming down toward the end. I know you said, thank God. Okay. Now, the thing I want to say in closing about number 7, the empathy piece, is that when we look at this piece, what they're saying is that we need to be more emotional. No, we don't. No. So because I'm not emotional, you're saying I'm narcissistic. No. I'm not supposed to be overly emotional. I'm not designed to be overly emotional. And just because I am doesn't mean because you say I am makes it so. But yes, that we use this DSM-5 and it tells us this, that, and the other. And sometimes it fits. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay. Number 8. Number 8 talks about resentment of others or a conviction that others are resentful of him and her or her. Resentment. Now, resentments is a part of human nature. We all have resentments. And those resentments are things that someone has done to us. Sure, everyone has had things done to them, have been mistreated. There's been cultures that have been mistreated. But we're saying that if you hold resentment based on how you were treated, then you are narcissistic because you're holding resentment. Wait a minute. Time out. What's the diagnosis of the person who did what they did to me? What about that piece? What about that? Oh, no. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that you're holding a resentment, and that resentment is keeping you stagnant and keeping you from moving. What resentments will also do is keep you from experiencing the same hurt that you experienced before. So resentment has a place. They really do. Healthy resentments. I mean, first time shame on me, first time shame on you, second time shame on me. No, you don't put yourself in the same situation over and over again. I don't care who it is. Right? All right. So resentments of others, or a conviction that others are resentful of him or her. Resentments are the displeasure, the irritation, or the bitterness that we may hold because of what was done to us. So we got to recognize those who use us. We got to recognize those who've harmed us. And we've got to handle them with a long handled spoon. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's not insanity. That's not narcissism. That is wisdom. That's wisdom. That's intelligence. You don't let people. You don't continue to set yourself up, right? Okay. So the last one, 9, is a display of egotistical and conceited behavior and attitudes. A display of egotistical and conceited behaviors or attitudes. So when a person displays egotistical, when we look at the word egotistical, okay, what we're looking at is self-centeredness, self-value, self-awareness, and of self-importance. Now, I don't see anything wrong with those. Ego is a part of the human condition. It has its rightful place when it's used correctly, when it's going to sustain you, keep you safe. They call it egotistical when they can call me that later once this situation passed. But the bottom line is, I understand what real egotistical people look like, and I'm not one. Okay, and most of us aren't. But we do understand our self-value. We should understand our self-value. We should understand that we are important. There's no one more important than you. You are the most important person on the planet. You know why? Come to my station channel tomorrow, I'll tell you. Okay, so here's a word. Here's a word. The display of egotistical and conceited. We hear that word, oh, he's conceited. She's conceited. Okay? What is conceited? They think that they're better than everybody. That's the negative side. But conceited means that someone is self-focused. They focused on what they're supposed to do. You can call it conceited, but that person will call it focused. Pinpoint focused. Non-distractible focused. And that pinpointedness is acted out in their behavior and their attitudes, their actions and their way of thinking. What we're seeing, and so here, I know, we talk. I'm talking about how these characteristics are being used to unfairly and non-clinically diagnose masculinity. We're supposed to be these things. We're supposed to be these things. But people will say anything they want to try to get you to be what they want you to be. The attempt to emasculate men is by making them do what they want to do by using a personality disorder and calling it a personality disorder. There's nothing disorderly about being an orderly man. Well, that's it. I hope you got something out of it. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to soon get the chat up so we can come together and we can talk about the chat and talk on the chat. And that's I'm really looking forward to that. Tonight we are on 3 different platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter tonight. And we're going to have the broadcast also redone and put on Anchor. And Anchor is our podcast. And our podcast is found on Anchor FM, anchor.fm. And it's called Pause on Purpose. Pause on Purpose, where you can go there and listen to our podcast. And we'll have some of these things there as well. Some of the things that are on our podcast have been done here, and some things haven't. Well, thank you for another privilege to be here. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that Carol Burnett. I'm so glad we had this time together, just to laugh and sing a song. Seems like we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time to say so long, so long. Till the next time, Dr. G. Alfred Palmer. We're out of here.